Well, 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 look who's back. I was going to, I don't know how to patch files together, and I'm doing this uploading on my own right now, and also not uploading to my website, just so you know. Okay, and I didn't want to just record another show saying, whoops, I didn't mean to cut off that show, because now, as it turns out, I have a whole lot more that I want to say. And I am saying these things and sharing my work with the intent that hopefully somebody will pick it up from here. So let's get going here. What do we have on the agenda? Well, we're still on the baby business, okay? And let me pull open this file. Okay. Lots of places for babies, okay? They're doing, births in hospitals are really to disable babies, and babies become a product. How do they become a product? Well, I found an interesting article, and I'll just go ahead and just read it on through here. As a former doctor, I'd like to tell you something. In the obstetrics hospital, meaning where they have babies, there is a silent and unofficial rule of immediate cutting of the umbilical cord. But you don't have that obligation. It happens like this because the newborn at the time of birth is in a double respiratory state. First, it gets oxygen and nutrients through the umbilical cord. His lungs are not fully activated yet. He gradually starts breathing air through his nose and then slowly activates his lungs. What do the doctors do? The umbilical cord is cut off immediately after birth, cutting off the flow of oxygen and nutrients. The child is crumbling, starts taking a deep breath, and tries to activate the lungs, and it hurts. Also, the crib blood must get to the baby. If the umbilical cord is cut off immediately, the baby will not have enough blood immediately after birth. However, the blood in the placenta contains the child's natural immune spectrum. In other words, if the umbilical cord is immediately cut off, part of the child's natural immunity is deliberately being denied. Why? A child that does not initially reach full immunity will likely have many health problems throughout his life. This in turn means the meds, meaning the medical people like the doctors, can now tell parents that their child needs shots, pills, mixtures, and surgery. The more children and unhealthy people, the more patient medicine. Nothing personal, just business. The umbilical cord should not be cut 1 hour after the birth. The doctors don't think about this. For all the fictional reasons, they want this to end as soon as possible. Medical practice wants the umbilical cord and tendon to remain as cool as possible. Now the question, why do drugs need a fresh bed and umbilical cord? Because what they're doing, they're cutting it early, like right away, because what they're trying to protect is the umbilical cord and these other nutrients, right, in this new, what they call a new fresh bed, okay? Expensive medicine and cosmetics preparations are made from their fabrics. Like, for example, they did admit that, I don't know what I was going to say. Expensive medical and cosmetic preparations are made, okay, from the umbilical cords. Because remember, they did admit that they had embryos in vaccines, right? That was a big deal, and that turned out to be true. And I kept thinking, where'd they get all these embryo things from? Well, here we go, right? They literally, and I'm just saying what I view, okay? They literally trick people into having their babies in hospitals because of the money. So, and it went on to say, this is one of the main reasons why medical practice does not want people to give birth at home in a comfortable and familiar atmosphere. If more and more people were doing it anyway, drugs would lose an important source of income. And then they have a disclaimer. This article is aimed not only to educate pregnant women and fathers, but also cosmetic enthusiasts who, in their ignorance, in addition to any chemicals, apply their faces with these cosmetics. Yeah, all those cosmetics are just loaded with chemicals, and the United States in particular, everything here is so loaded. We have like thousands more chemicals that are actually not allowed in Europe and other places. So, a couple other creepy things about children. Like all new mothers, New Jersey residents Hannah and Erica each experienced the unusual emotional whirlwind during their pregnancies. They had attended prenatal classes, meticulously planned their nurseries, and devoured books on parenting. They were determined to give their newborns the best possible start in life. Little did they know that a disquieting surprise awaited them after their babies were born. Shortly after giving birth, medical staff performed a routine heel prick. Their child's blood was collected on a card and whisked away to the New Jersey Department of Health Newborn Screening Laboratory to be tested for a range of disorders. New Jersey didn't seek Hannah or Erica's consent first. Instead, each got a handout stating that New Jersey law mandated it. But that didn't raise any red flags for the two. Every state conducts such testing, and they trusted the system. But Hannah and Erica's real shock came upon learning what New Jersey didn't disclose. Unbeknownst to parents, a portion of their baby's blood remained unused after the screening was complete. And New Jersey had unilaterally decided that it could keep that blood for 23 years. Even worse, New Jersey believed it could use that blood however it saw fit, whether that be selling it to third parties, giving it to law enforcement, or even turning it over to the Pentagon. Hannah and Erica were appalled. Their top priority was protecting their children's health and safety. Realizing that they had no idea where their children's blood might be or what it was being used for only deepened their distress. Fueled by that concern and a shared sense of outrage, Hannah, Erica, and others have joined forces with the Institute for Justice to file a class action lawsuit which invokes two fundamental claims under the U.S. Constitution. First, it raises a Fourth Amendment claim arguing that the state's retention of the children's blood without consent was an unconstitutional seizure. And second, it raises a due process claim under the 14th Amendment, asserting that the state's creation of its blood database unconstitutionally infringed upon Hannah and Erica's fundamental right to make medical decisions for their children. What they asked for is simple: an order telling New Jersey to either obtain informed consent from parents to hold on to the remaining blood or else return or destroy it. Their fight, as part of the protection of the Fourth Amendment. I kind of wonder. You have to wonder about them all, right? This Institute for Justice, clearly they're doing good work. I've mentioned them in the past. They're helping people who get robbed by the side of the highway and stuff. And, well, I don't know. Do we even have any rights to even be arguing about this stuff right now? Big questions, right? Okay, so here's what I think's going on here. I think that it's all just a money game, right? And I was kind of concerned about hormones and kidneys. And, we see all these stories about kidneys being stolen from people and stuff. And I thought for years there's something there. And another thing would have possibly to do with infants. What kind of, what could they get from infants? I don't know. You can't really put a kidney of an infant into an adult now, can you? So maybe this talk about stealing kidneys only relates to adults, right? But it has to do with medical theft, so I'm going to just kind of toss it in here since we're talking about the horrible ways they're stealing actual body parts and stuff to make money from. So, because here's a reason why I'm covering it now. Because I believe 100%, there's a dark reason why they want us to know on our driver's licenses whether we're willing to donate our organs. And I've said this in the past. I know it sounds paranoid, but let's say one of the elites blows out their kidneys from the hormones they're taking, and I'll get to that in a minute here. What if they do that, right? Well, not what if, when they do that, because when you start gobbling down hormones, you're going to have some issues, and I'll get to the kidneys in a second here. So I don't think the argument is stealing babies' kidneys necessarily. They would be stealing the placenta and all that stuff to do something with. But anyway, so since kidneys is a thing, and the elites are all taking hormones, all of them, right? The hormones have a real big impact on the kidneys. So do they have us identifying ourselves as willing to donate our kidneys as a good thing or a devious thing? I don't really know. How many of them are blowing out their kidneys? Well, as they get their circle of friends and transgenders bigger, there will be a bigger need for more kidneys, right? So there's a woman called Nancy Schreper Hughes, and she had been involved. Let me see here. Nancy Schreper Hughes. Oh, anyway, so let me finish my train of thought about that. So I don't really know, because they came out with those DNA kits to make money off of them, and also that's what got them into trouble with all of these fake Jews, the Romans, because they're all getting diseases from the hormones. So that triggered that. So yeah, I think they're also in pretty big need of kidneys. So this Nancy Schreper Hughes had spent more than a decade tracking the illegal sale of human organs across the globe. Okay, let me see here. Posing as a medical doctor. You'll have to excuse me. The microphone has to be very close to my face to talk, so you hear me going not intentional. Okay. Nancy Schreper Hughes, we'll just call her Nancy Hughes, had spent more than a decade tracking the illegal sale of human organs across the globe. Posing, and the reason I'm reading this article, it came from a site that I do trust, okay? They do really good research, okay? Posing as a medical doctor in some places and a would-be kidney buyer in others. She had linked gangsters, clergymen, and surgeons in a trail that led from South Africa, Brazil, and other developing nations all the way back to some of her own country's best medical facilities. So it was that on an icy February afternoon in 2003 that the anthropologist from the University of California, Berkeley, found herself sitting across from a group of transplant surgeons, excuse me, transplant surgeons in a small conference room at a big Philadelphia hospital. By accident or by design, she believed surgeons in their unit had been transplanting black market kidneys from residents of the world's most impoverished slums into the failing bodies of wealthy dialysis patients from Israel, Europe, and the United States. According to Hughes, the arrangements were being negotiated by an elaborate network of criminals who kept most of the money themselves. For about $150,000 per transplant, these organ brokers would reach across continents to connect buyers and sellers, whom they then guided to broker-friendly hospitals here in the United States. Places where Hughes said surgeons were either complicit in the scheme or willing to turn a blind eye. The brokers themselves also posed as or hired clergy, there you go, to accompany their clients into the hospital and ensure that the process went smoothly. The organ sellers typically got a few $1,000s for their troubles, plus the chance to see an American city. As she made her case, Hughes, a diminutive 60-something-year-old with splashes of pink in her short grayish-brown hair, slid a bulky document across the table. Nearly 60 pages of interviews she had conducted with buyers, sellers, and brokers in virtually every corner of the world. People all over were telling me that they didn't have to go to a third world hospital, but could get the surgery done in New York, Philadelphia, or Los Angeles, at top hospitals with top surgeons. In interview after interview from transplant patients in interview after interview, former transplant patients had cited the Philadelphia hospital as a good place to go for brokered transplants. Two surgeons in the room had also been named repeatedly. Hughes had no idea if those surgeons were aware that some of their patients had bought organs illegally. She had requested the meeting so she could call the transgression to their attention just in case. Hospital officials told Newsweek, this was Newsweek magazine, okay, not just some random person on the internet, that after meeting Hughes, they conducted an internal review of their transplant program. While they say they found no evidence of wrongdoing on the part of their surgeons, they did tighten some regulations to ensure better oversight of foreign donors and recipients. But that afternoon, Hughes says, they basically threw me out. It's little wonder. The exchange of human organs for cash or any other valuable consideration, such as a car or a vacation, is illegal in every country except Iran. Now, isn't that interesting? Every country except Iran. And you know, Iran is really big into the transgender business, from what I understand. From what I also understand, you can't really be gay in Iran. You will be forced by the government to become transgender. No one looks at a map and sees that the U.S. government has bases completely surrounding Iran. Iran would have to be pretty fucking crazy to make a move without the U.S.'s approval or involvement. This is all a big, huge trick. Because I guess being surrounded by U.S. military bases in Iran, I guess nobody has considered unmarked planes that could fly easily in and out of Iran, right? Always think about the simple. Nonetheless, international organ trafficking, mostly of kidneys, but also of half livers, eyes, skin, and blood, is flourishing. The World Health Organization, who are you going to call, estimates that 1/5 of the 70,000 kidneys transplanted worldwide every year come from the black market. Oh, that's quite an admission, isn't it? Most of that trade can be explained by the simple law of supply and demand. Increasing lifespans, better diagnosis of kidney failure, and improved surgeries that can be safely performed on even the riskiest of patients have spurred unprecedented demand for human organs. In America, the number of people in need of a transplant has nearly tripled during the past decade, topping 100,000 for the first time last October. But despite numerous hold on one second here. But despite numerous media campaigns urging more people to mark the backs of their driver's licenses, the number of traditional or deceased organ donors has barely budged, hovering between 5,000 and 8,000 per year in the last 15 years. Because if you're outside this country, in the United States, we are asked to, on the back of our driver's license, to check a box if we want to be an organ donor. So I'll just add my little suspicious thought here. I mean, really, it's on your driver's license, right? How hard would it be to stage a car crash, right? Whoops, car just crashed. Oh, look, they say they want to donate their kidneys. Oh, what a convenient miracle. And nobody will notice that you got run off the road, right? Okay, I'll continue reading. In that decade and a half, a new and brutal calculus has emerged. We now know that a kidney from a living donor will keep you alive twice as long as one taken from a cadaver. Now, that's a scary thought. Okay, what they're saying is a kidney from a living donor will keep you alive twice as long as one taken from a cadaver. So, if they pull you out of that car wreck and you're still breathing, they will say, well, I think she's going to die. Why don't we go ahead and just take the kidneys, right? Or in the case of all these rumors that may not be rumors about China killing prisoners, well, what they do is they figure, well, we have these inmates that have this blood type, so let's line them up and shoot them today, and we'll grab those kidneys. Well, that would give you better kidneys, right? When I was young, this would have been, I don't know. It was right when I got out of high school time frame. So many years ago, I actually worked at a county hospital, and I was like the little ward clerk, the one who they bossed around to do all little errands and stuff. So yeah, I worked in a dialysis unit around kidney patients. Kidney from the living donor. Now, see, that's fascinating, right? And that's why you always look at how these things get started, because I never knew this before. So that means I got to kind of plan your death and be there to grab your kidney. And thanks to powerful anti-rejection drugs, that donor no longer needs to be an immediate family member. Welcome news to those who would rather not risk the health of a loved one. In fact, surgeons say that a growing number of organ transplants are occurring between complete strangers. And they acknowledge not all of those exchanges are altruistic. Organ selling has become a global problem, says Frank Delmonico, a surgery professor at Harvard Medical School and advisor to the who are you going to call, and is likely to get much worse unless we confront the challenges of policing it. Yeah, here again. When you don't have any rules in place, all bets are off, right? Thanks to those lawyers. Okay, for Hughes, the biggest challenge has been convincing people that the problem exists at all. It used to be a joke that came up at conferences and between surgeons, she says. In books and movies, you find these stories of people waking up in bathtubs full of ice with a scar where one of their kidneys used to be. People assumed it was just science fiction. That assumption has proved difficult to dismantle. In the early 1980s, rumors that Americans were kidnapping children throughout Central America only to harvest their organs led to brutal attacks on American tourists in the region. When those stories proved false, the State Department classified organ trafficking reports under urban legend. Hughes's evidence, which is largely anecdotal and comes in part from interviews with known criminals, has not convinced department officials otherwise. It would be impossible to successfully conceal an clandestine organ trafficking ring, said the department manager. Well, yeah, I mean, first thing you're going to do is deny it, right? Todd Leventhal, the department's counterterrorism information officer, wrote in a 2004 report, adding that stories like the ones Hughes tells are irresponsible and totally unsubstantiated. In recent years, however, the "who you gonna call" Human Rights Watch and many transplant surgeons have broken with that view and acknowledged organ trafficking as a real problem. At first, not even Hughes believed the rumors. It was in the mid-1980s, after a study of infant mortality in the shanty towns of northern Brazil, that she initially caught wind of mythical body snatcher stories. Vans of English-speaking foreigners would circle a village, rounding up street kids whose bodies would later be found in trash bins removed of their livers, eyes, kidneys, and hearts. When colleagues in China, Africa, and Colombia reported similar rumblings, Hughes began poking around. Some stories, especially the ones about kidnapped children, stolen limbs, and tourists murdered for organs, were clearly false. But it was only clear that slums throughout the developing world were full of AWOL soldiers, desperate parents, and anxious teenage boys willing to part with a kidney or slice of liver in exchange for cash and a chance to see the world, or at least to buy a car. Before long, Hughes had immersed herself in an underworld of surgeons, criminals, and those eager to buy or sell whatever body parts could be spared. In Brazil, Africa, and Moldavia, newspapers advertised the sale and solicitation of human body parts, while brokers trolled the streets with $100 bills, easily recruiting young sellers. In Istanbul, Hughes posed as an organ buyer and talked one would-be seller down to $3,000 for his best kidney. In some of these countries, as the WHO later qualified, 60 to 70% of all transplant surgeries involved the transfer of organs from those country citizens to transplant tourists who came from the developed world. But not all organs flowed from poor countries to rich ones. Americans, for example, were both buyers and sellers in this global market. A Kentucky woman once contacted Hughes looking to sell her kidney or part of her liver so she could buy some desperately needed dentures. And a Brooklyn dialysis patient purchased his kidney from Nick Rosen, an Israeli man who wanted to visit America. So that part, it's interesting because that part they were talking about, whoops, a tourist just ends up in a bathtub. Well, these people were evidently recruited and paid to come here to have this surgery done. Unlike some organ sellers who told of dingy basement hospitals with less equipment than a Spartan kitchen, Rosen found an organ broker through a local paper in Tel Aviv who arranged to have the transplant done at Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York. Oh, I just skipped over here. Nick Rosen, this person, was the Israeli man who donated his kidney, okay? I lost track of him for a minute. So Rosen had found the organ donor through an ad in the Tel Aviv newspaper. He went to Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York. He's also an amateur filmmaker. Rosen documented a portion of his odyssey on camera and sent the film to Hughes, whose research he had read about online. The video excerpt that Newsweek viewed shows Rosen meeting with his broker and buyer in a New York coffee shop where they haggle over price, then entering Mount Sinai and talking with surgeons, one of whom asks him to put the camera away. Finally, after displaying his post-surgery scars for the camera, Rosen is seen rolling across a hotel bed covered in $20 bills. He says he was paid $15,000. Brokers, on the other hand, typically net around $50,000 per transplant after travel and other expenses. In America, some insurance plans will cover at least a portion of the donor's medical expenses. The money changed hands outside the hospital's corridors, and Rosen said that he deliberately misled the Mount Sinai doctors, but that no one there challenged him. One hospital in Maryland screened us out, he says. Tom Diflo, a transplant surgeon at New York University's Langone Medical Center, points out that many would-be donors do not pass the psychological screening, and that attempt to film the event would probably have set off an alarm bell or two. But the doctors at Mount Sinai were not very curious about me, Rosen says. We told them I was a close friend of the guy who I sold my kidney to, and that I was donating altruistically, and that was pretty much the end of it. Citing privacy laws, Mount Sinai officials declined to comment on the detail of Rosen's case. But spokesperson Ian Michaels says that the hospital screening process is rigorous and comprehensive and assesses each donor's motivation. All donors are clearly advised that it is against the law to receive money or gifts for being an organ donor, he says. I mean, really, would you go and give up one of your kidneys for free? People do a lot of stuff for money. But kidneys is really one of them, right? Thinky, right? So, because many people do donate organs out of kindness, altruism provides an easy cover for those seeking to profit. And here's another thing. I found this in the surrogacy business in this country. All these people need surrogates, right? Because they can't have their own kids. Well, same line group of people run that business, right? The hospitals, the doctors. You start to see some patterns going on here. Yeah, and the U.S. supposedly has over 1 million embryos frozen on ice around this country somewhere. Is that true? Who knows? They certainly do not know what they're doing, that's for sure. I spent almost a couple of years in those Facebook groups trying to figure out what was going on with all this IVF and all this stuff. And there's only a couple of people over there that seem to know what they're talking about. So these doctors, I think probably some doctors get into it because they want to help people, right? But I would have to guess that if you want to become a doctor and go to Harvard and all that kind of stuff, and you're willing to take out all these student loans and stuff to get your education, probably in it for the power and the money, okay? That's just what I would say. But remember, only my opinion. So, yeah, because many people do originate out of kindness, it's a cover, right? Just like these women who say that they're becoming surrogates to help other women. The fact is, all of those women are in need of money to keep the rest of their family floating. So that becomes an option that happens to the very poor. So nothing altruistic about it. We all may want to try to claim that it was for this reason or that reason, but I suggest we're at the final chapter of the game board. How about if we make a pact that we stop lying to ourselves, okay? Just stop lying to ourselves about this horror that's going on. So, and U.S. laws can be, that's where I took off, okay. And U.S. laws can be easy to circumvent. Gee, I wonder why that is, especially for foreign patients who may pay cash and are often gone in the space of a day. This other person, DiFlio, who has worked in numerous transplant wards over the past 2 decades, says that while they are in the minority, hospitals that perform illegal transplant certainly exist in the United States. There are a couple places around that have reputations for doing transplants with paid donors, and then some hospitals that have a don't ask, don't tell policy, he says. It's definitely happening, but it's difficult to ferret out. DiFlo became an outspoken advocate for reform several years ago when he discovered that rather than risk dying on the U.S. wait list, many of his wealthier dialysis patients had their transplants done in China. There, they could produce the kidneys of executed prisoners. In India, Lawrence Cohen, another UC Berkeley anthropologist, found that women are being forced by their husbands to sell organs to foreign buyers in order to contribute to the family's income or to provide for the dowry of a daughter. But while the who you gonna call estimates that organ trafficking networks are widespread and growing, it says that reliable data are almost impossible to come by. Nancy has done courageous work, literally risking her life to expose these networks. But antidotes are impossible to quantify. Hughes acknowledges that in gathering these antidotes, she has frequently bumped up against the ethical boundaries of her own profession. While UC Berkeley, which funds most of her work, granted special permission for her to go undercover, she still takes heat from colleagues. Misrepresenting oneself to research subjects violates a cardinal rule of academic research. I expect my methods to be met with criticism, she says, but being an anthropologist should not mean being a bystander to crimes against the vulnerable. Maybe not, but in the United States, the average wait time for a kidney is expected to increase to 10 years, and this is by 2010. Most dialysis patients die in half that time, and the desperate don't always play by the rules. Yeah, and there's just tons of money in keeping you on those dialysis machines, right? This is about the merchandising our bodies, right? I'm going to put this on hold for a second here. Okay, I got to really focus when I put things on hold. Okay, let me see here. Where was I? So yeah, so can they use children's eyes and all that kind of stuff? Yeah. I will certainly look further into at what age moving these things become appropriate. But remember, we're dealing with psychopaths, and this is all about the money. And the sad thing is they've gotten so many people to go along with their plan. And the sad news is, even sadder, is this, is that I believe 100% in my heart of hearts that this is the final chapter. If you made a bad deal just for some fame and some money, I would really, really encourage you to think carefully. I don't believe there's going to be any do-overs after this time. So money is how they're getting everybody. Money and fame. So anyway, so it reminded me when I was looking into this stuff, I remembered right when Trump started office. I mean, like really within days, right? Trump had the members of the Kidney Foundation in his office, and I thought, why is Trump meeting with the people from the Kidney Foundation like almost the minute he got into office, right? So this is what it was about. A new Trump executive order on kidneys could save thousands of lives. It's one of the biggest government actions on kidneys in decades, and this is from Vox in 2019. President Trump on Wednesday announced an executive order on a topic rather far afield from his usual concerns: improving care for patients with kidney disease. And I believe 100% this is about getting access to our kidneys for theirs. Hey, call me a weirdo, I don't care, but everything I predicted so far has come true, so just stay with me on this one, okay? So they're just backstopping themselves because they know they're blowing out their own kidneys. So, okay. That, because remember, when things don't go along with things, like for example, Joe Biden talking about how the union UAW workers, yeah, we got to pay you more, go get more money. That falls completely out of line with everything Joe Biden has ever stood for. Joe Biden has made sure that people could not escape student loan debt. He made it, he's in the state where the credit card companies are, okay? They made it sure that you could not discharge these things for bankruptcy. So for Joe Biden to all of a sudden be talking about the United Auto Workers being a good thing, those being red flags, right? Just like with me, when Trump was, I swear, I'm just scanning around one day and he's talking about kidneys, and I'm thinking, well, what in the hell is this all about, right? They're murdering us. Them acting like they want to save our kidneys goes out of pattern with their other behaviors, right? So it went on to say, that might seem like an obscure topic. Yes, to me it was so obscure that I could not believe my eyes, okay? But it's a crucial one. A shortage of kidneys for transplant kills about 43,000 people per year. Compare that to car accidents, which kill 40,000 people a year. Never knew that. Or homicide, which kills fewer than 20,000. So it's pretty interesting that car accidents, 40,000 a year, homicide, 20,000 a year. And all we see on the news, everybody's getting killed by guns. Instead of getting replacement, I'll start over. Instead of getting replacement organs for everyone whose kidneys have failed, the current U.S. system relies heavily on dialysis, where machines replace kidney function. Dialysis is usually offered 3 times a week for 4 hours at a time. That means no traveling of any real length, since you have to be close to the machine, and holding down a job is extremely difficult due to the time commitment of dialysis and the exhaustion it causes. It's an untenable system, and to the administration's considerable credit, the new executive order appears to go a long way toward fixing it. Oh boy, here we go. It would make it easier for living donors to give kidneys and other organs promote the donation of organs from deceased people, and restructure payment for healthcare providers to reduce the rate of kidney failure in the first place. There hasn't been presidential action on kidneys in 46 years, a senior administration official involved with the executive order told this person. It's time to take a comprehensive approach. It is also a change that, as Politico's Dan Diamond note, reflects the personal histories of key policymakers. Melania Trump was hospitalized for kidney issues last year. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar's father received a kidney transplant last year. Adam Bowler, the director at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, has talked about his aunt's death from kidney disease. Well, I'm not going to make any reckless comments. I haven't looked closely at these people, but Melania Trump is not a woman. I'll bet you diamonds to donuts that most of these people are transgender. So, the result is an under-the-radar policy change that could amount to one of the most significant things the Trump administration does in terms of total years of lives saved. That's really something else, really. As someone who rarely agrees with the administration and finds most of its conduct actively abhorrent, I am genuinely surprised and impressed at how worthwhile this measure is. The order has three major parts. One on living kidney donors. Now we all know more about that stuff, right? One on deceased donors, and one on alternatives to center-based dialysis. The executive order aims to reform the system for living donors as well as living lung, liver, and intestine donors by making sure donors are held financially harmless by donating. While donors don't have to pay for their medical procedures, they do typically have to cover other expenses like travel to and from the hospital, child and elder care they can't perform while they are recovering, lost wages while they're off from work, and so on. Donors to low-income patients can get travel expenses paid for now, but the executive order would allow people with higher income to benefit and enable reimbursement of more significant costs like wages and child care. Well, I have one more here, I think. So why am I talking about these hormones? Well, because I think they're blowing their own kidneys out. And I had some data here. I'll see if I can find it. They're not doing any studies about this transgender stuff because that's how they operate, right? So I could only find a couple things. One was a recent analysis published by the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology. Nephrology is the field that kidneys are in. They examined the effects of masculizing and feminizing gender-affirming hormone therapy on markers of kidney function. And it is a big one. So let me go over here and read this because I couldn't, it wouldn't let me copy the information. Okay, let me see here. Okay. Research evidence suggests in adult males, normal testosterone hormone or testosterone replacement therapy tightens and narrows blood vessels, increase platelet clumping, and promote fat deposition over internal organs. Because males have a less fat on their skeleton, real males, right? Women have more fat on their system. So in males, normal testosterone hormone or testosterone replacement therapy tightens and narrows blood vessels, increase platelet clumping, and promotes fat deposition over internal organs. And also, when males get this, let me keep reading here. These actions contribute toward high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, insulin-resistant type 2 diabetes. All the above are known strong risk factors for both heart and kidney disease. In addition, testosterone has a worsening impact on both pre-existing heart and chronic kidney disease as well. So all the fake men you see on the screen are having to take testosterone through their life. And you can start to see that as they get older, the amounts really start to fight with each other because they actually start growing female breasts. I just posted a picture of Tony Blair over on YouTube. It's got quite the female breast going there because you can't fight those hormones forever, okay? So, strong risk factors for both heart and kidney disease. Testosterone has a worsening impact on both pre-existing heart and chronic kidney disease as well. In adult premenopausal females, normal levels of estrogen in blood keeps blood vessels relaxed, dampens release of chemicals like renin and angiotensin that otherwise raise blood pressure within kidneys and reduces inflammation. This keeps blood vessels healthy, lowers blood pressure, and is a protective factor in heart and kidney disease. Conversely, in women who have hit menopause, their estrogen content in blood falls below normal levels. This reverses all the favorable actions of estrogen. Plus, it gives an upper hand to the baseline testosterone present in even healthy female otherwise. Together, these hormonal changes contribute to substantial high blood pressure. If uncontrolled, it can cause kidney damage in true course. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that part there. But yeah, I've been suspicious of the kidney thing for a long, long time. And because it has to do with the children, all that, I wanted to put it into this file. Now, what else do I have to say? I don't know yet. I'm going to put it on hold right now so I don't have to do another show. Okay, let me put this on hold for a second here. Another thing that's always been on my mind is who started all this handicapped children stuff? Well, that was those Kennedys. You know what I think about those Kennedys? The Kennedys started the Olympics for handicapped children, and I believe, and I've said this a million times before, and I'll repeat it once again, they are putting all of these handicapped children in our faces for a purpose, because this whole thing is so far out of control that what they're doing right now is, well, let's put it this way. They probably aren't killing all of the deformed children that are being born, right? They're keeping some of them alive, and they're keeping them alive in some of the strangest ways possible by fundraising. Everything becomes a fundraising tool, right? You never notice all those kids from St. Jude's Hospital? Now, I'm not going to be making any blanket statements. I've looked at quite a few of those people that go to St. Jude's Hospital, and, well, it seems a little suspect, okay? So you have to ask yourself, where are all these sick kids coming from? Well, I think a lot of them could be coming from that thing with the cutting their cord the minute they're born, right? And not letting their natural immunity take place. And that just shows you to the disregard for our human life and the way that they will disable us just simply for money. Just simply for money. Just simply to sell more pills and more ways to harm us. And I don't know what to tell you. The problem is so big that I don't believe that a lot of people are really able to engage in the truth at this point. So in closing, they got us to give babies have babies in the hospital for a very dark reason, right? Remember I talked in the past about Rosemary's Baby. That was predictive programming. Rosemary's Baby was from the 60s. Yeah, they have this weird bent on wanting to make money from all things babies. So you have to ask yourself, when these people are always saying, what about the children? What about the children? They don't give two fucks about the children, okay? Get that into your head. Stop trusting them with your children. You may like your doctor and think, it's kind of crazy for me to say all this stuff. Well, you may like your doctor, right? Do you really understand how psychopaths operate? They operate by putting the best ones in front of us that we're going to like, right? They don't put the full-out monsters in front of our faces. They put the ones that we will bond to because we are the kind and caring types. So don't let your eye off the wheel for even a second. If you have to take a child into a doctor, stay with that child. Do not leave them unattended in these monsters' hands. And all of this begs the question, why did they need to steal all of these babies and act like they were stolen, right? Well, these are the same people that came up with that Habsburg chin as far as their incest, right? They come up with some pretty incredible stories. So right now, as I sit here ready to close this show, I have to tell you that in my heart of hearts, it makes me extraordinarily sad to say this, but I do not believe that all those babies got adopted. So be safe out there. And goodbye for now. And I will make one last suggestion. If you want to get your eye on the ball and protect yourself the best, invite silence into your life. You will know when things are running amok, and you will know what you should be doing to respond to it. In the days and the times ahead, that is going to be the difference between a successful person on the game board and one who crumbles immediately. None of this is going to be easy. None of it. But we signed up. We knew it wasn't going to be easy. So let's not let our guard down at the very end. I believe, at least for myself, my role was to help protect the most vulnerable. I believe that's a goal for a lot of people out there. I just don't speak for you. But my goal has been to help the most vulnerable because, after all, what are they going to do without our help? And in the days and time to come, the world will be full of vulnerable people. What they're doing right now is what they do is between Israel, the United States, and the United Nations. You keep the lies going in circles, okay? You have Anthony Blinken over there, a man who doesn't blink with the most psychopathic stare I have ever seen. You got Anthony Blinken over there saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to talk about it. Oh yeah, we're going to see if we can let this happen." Well, the longer you delay, the more people get murdered, and then they can say, "Well, who could ever have seen this coming?" Keep your head on a swivel. You came to play the game board game. Be an active participant in whichever way you can. I can't even tell you how thrilled I am. I'll be leaving the game board soon, but I got to tell you, looking at these people in the streets, I'm thrilled. Thrilled. Absolutely thrilled. Keep it up. Remember, they're going to be infiltrating those groups. Just remember that. It's going to be people you like the most that you got to watch the closest. That is the sad reality. Listen to your own heart. Listen to your own inner voice. Be safe out there, and goodbye for now.